This pristine nature reserve is one of the richest places to dive in the Coral Triangle. For Nanning, it's a baseline for comparison to other parts of the region, which have lost up to 40% of their richness and diversity, caused by human activity and climate change. At last count, the variety of fish at Raja Ampat numbered nearly 1,500 species. And many of them grew up in these nurseries.
I've never seen better mangroves than I've seen at Raja Ampat. The water is relatively clear, and this is in common with mangroves. Beautiful coral gardens.
The reefs act as a buffer. They create a sheltered habitat for the mangroves, which in turn provide a vital nursery area for fish. Over 1/3 of the world's mangrove species can be found here.
The mangroves are full of fry, small fish that you can hardly see. The small fish stay there where they're safe until they're big enough to go out into the open ocean. We do find those wonderful archerfish, and they don't feed on other marine animals, they feed on insects, which they shoot out of the branches with a squirt of water.
But it's not completely safe for baby fish. One predator, the black-tip reef shark, has adapted so it can get in at high tide to raid the nursery. But sharks are very rare at Raja Ampat. Most have been taken out by shark fishermen. Otherwise, the Raja Ampat Marine Reserve is relatively untouched because it's very remote. In 2013, the Indonesian government acted to protect the sharks in Raja Ampat and enforced a sanctuary. Maybe there's a chance that now it will return to what Valerie remembers as a blue heaven.
And when we entered the water, we were in paradise. It was incredible. You couldn't see through the fish, and that's true. You could not see through the fish. There was everything, from big sharks, there was just everything. You don't know what's out there. There's always the element of surprise and expectation. It could be anything. The manta rays in Raja Ampat are virtually unhunted, untouched. So they have no fear at all, and there's many of them. They come into their cleaning stations to be cleaned because, like all big marine animals, they get parasites and they rely on the cleaner wrasse to clean all the parasites off. Frequently, manta rays have pilot fish in front of them. They just stick around there with this very large marine animal that is not dangerous to them because manta rays are plankton eaters. And I think it's important that somebody knows they can come here, and if they want to see manta rays, they can. It's sitting here, this wonderful place, waiting to be explored, full of discoveries that haven't been made yet. There's not many places like that left on this planet.
The nations of the Coral Triangle contain over 360 million people living on many thousands of islands, with a coral coastline that would circle the globe 3 times. Here there is a complex mixture of many different religions and cultures, speaking over 2,000 distinct languages.
They've also got some new colours in there, but I don't mind that. These peoples who live close to the erupting volcanoes are also close to their unconscious selves as well. So there's an enormous amount of extraordinary mysticism and exotica, which has always fascinated me. So the diversity of human beings and of human experience is almost as great as the diversity of creatures in the Coral Triangle.
As long as humans have lived on these islands, they have relied on the Coral Triangle for their survival. It's their food and their future, and its adventures in paradise.
Much of the Coral Triangle is so isolated that they have no alternative yet but to continue using their traditional fishing techniques in order to survive. They came from another village about 40 minutes away, and they're going 2 hours away to the main island of Alor to sell their one fish that they just caught this morning. So we've done everybody a favor. We take it off their hands, they can go back to their village, and we've got an enormous fish here for about $30. Thank you. That's not even an outboard motor they're using there. It's just a little generator motor. So they wouldn't have had much to get across to Alor, to the south there at all. This is a stonefish he's just brought up here, and he says, yeah, it's got spines. It's not too good if you get stuck by them. So he's out here spearing stonefish and picking them up, and he's going to take them home for the pot. It'll kill you quite easily if you get it wrong and get spiked by one of their spines. It's a wonderful little homemade Hawaiian sling-type spear gun. What sendiri itu kau camata? Dari bambu atau? Dari kayu. So he's carved those himself, those goggles, out of wood, and he's using ordinary window pane glass, and it's kept around the back of his head with inner tar rubber. So this is a very ecological way of fishing, as you can imagine. Oh, he's got a little octopus in there as well. Oh, there we go, a crocodile needlefish. There are quite a few stories of people being killed by these in their canoes because these fish scoot along like a sort of woody woodpecker with just their tails in the water, or they can fly out like a spear right out of the water, and quite a few fishermen have been found dead in their canoes with one of these fish impaling them in their throats.
Sudah.
Sudah, Pak. Terima kasih
Ya,
banyak.
terima kasih.
Terima kasih, John. Di situ, di sebelah keranjangnya ikan itu, di bawah itu kan. Hello, so the only people in Indonesia who make these giant fish traps. And he says he's been here all his life, and I say how beautiful it is. What a fantastic place. This clear crystal water, full of fish, whales come across. He says, yes, but he says, you're poor. Di mana airnya tadi kita taruh? So he says he can get 100 fish at least in each of these pots a day, and it's more than enough to feed his own family, and he's got plenty left over to sell as well. uses no bait whatsoever. They just all swim in. You can't find a more ecological way of fishing the environment. This is essentially a maritime nation. We talk about it as a country, but they refer to themselves as this sovereign land and water of ours. So when we lose what has been definitely a sustainable fishing technique amongst all these traditional peoples of the Coral Triangle, we face its imminent destruction.
But the people of the Coral Triangle live their lives on the edge of imminent destruction. The tectonic rage that has given them such abundance can easily take it away.
Being so tectonically active, Indonesia is constantly racked by earthquake and tsunami, which buries entire islands.
They arrive at the town of Maumere, Flores.
Bagaimana dalam di sini?
Lawrence goes to a Bajau village, where a fisherman recalls how he lost his whole family in the tsunami.
They saw the wave coming. There was no warning of it, but they saw it coming, and they began running inland, but his younger brother was killed because the house came down on top of him with the wave.
Wherever he goes in Indonesia, Lawrence finds the Bajau Laut people living a nomadic life in the shadow of the volcanoes.
All the Baju set up at certain seasons temporary stilted houses. They are the equivalent to the gypsies of the sea.
Di rumah sini?
Yeah.
Untuk saya sendiri, keluarga saya.
Well, he said he was a 10-year-old when the 92 earthquake struck and sent this big tsunami through here, which killed at least 2,000 people along the coast here. And in this little tiny community, killed 100 people.
On December the 12th, 1992, a tremor in Flores touched off several tsunamis.
All along the northern coast of Flores, killed about 2,000 to 5,000 people. It's rather difficult to estimate how many.
Like many of her people, Nanning is philosophical about the dangers of living here.
Indonesia, we are a country with the most volcanic mountains. We are in a very active tectonic movement. Tsunami is part of our life we have to deal with. On the good hand, it's giving us a lot of this dynamic habitat that is changing from time to time because of this. It gives us the richness. It gives both underwater and on the land.
Right.
But then, yeah, we have to pay for it.
The long, shallow slope of the volcanoes underwater has created a problem for the divers. The water isn't deep enough for them to do their research.
We really haven't been able to get down, to our target depth, 100, 110 meters. So if we can do that here, where it looks like we're this close to the shore, we won't have a long lateral swim like we did the other day. So
maybe this hole here is the deepest section here. Well, that's pretty good for you guys. Look at that.
Very good. All right, then. That looks good. It looks like it's the right conditions.
The Bishop Museum divers are down at 100 meters. Here the search continues for a new species. One small fish could hold a clue to a big mystery. Meanwhile, one of the things that Valerie has noticed is that there are very few sharks left in the Coral Triangle.
Even in Raja Ampat, you don't see hardly any sharks. You're lucky to see them. Where the first time I went there, we saw sharks every time we went in the water.
Shark conservation became the focus of her life with her husband Ron. And the survival of sharks has become even more poignant to Val since Ron died.
When we first came here, every dive there were sharks. We saw all sorts of sharks. They were everywhere. Not dangerous, just minding their own business. Now, you can be here on a 2-week trip and not see a single shark. They've been finned. They take them for their fins.
Do you remember that?
Oh, Marky. Yes.
Valerie taught her 2 nephews, Jono and Mark Hayes, to dive with sharks at a very early age.
That's when I was training you to be a shark wrangler.
I think I was set up right from the start. And I
you
used
were
to
on
have to go out and spear fish and let you know when the sharks had arrived.
That's exactly right, yes.
You'd say to Ron, "What do you think, Ron?" Ron would look over the side and have a look at the behaviour of the sharks. And yeah, I think we can go in now. You just swim down real fast, Marky, with little Neffy, with this pile of dead fish on a coat hanger.
That's right.
So wait till we're set up and then you swim down as quick as you can and bring those baits down and tie them up to the reef.
Ooh, the shark bait has such teeth, dear.
And I'm sitting in there shaking in the boat saying, "Don't you think it's too risky?" And Ron looks at me and says, "It's a calculated risk, Mark. We should be fine."
And he keeps it out of sight.
But there are far greater dangers for the deep sea divers than sharks, like getting caught in a changing tide. The Bishop Museum divers are down at the limit. Down here, any problem can quickly develop into a life-threatening situation. As happens when they are pinned to the bottom in a powerful current. As the current increases, the deep divers are forced to abandon their dive and concentrate on their survival. The lunar landscape bottom holds little traction, and they struggle to make headway against the deadly current. They can't just swim up. It takes hours of decompression to surface after a deep dive. The divers have been down longer than expected. Richard releases a safety buoy to let everybody above know where he is. Meanwhile, the weather has changed. The ship's captain, Mark, is concerned.
Yeah, this is one of the main risks with their diving. You know, once they go down for 3 hours, they can't come back up. Once they go deep, they've got to step their way back up slowly. We got one out here being picked up in the lead. The other 2 guys, I think, must have got sucked out the back of the rock there where you can see the current against the waves. The biggest danger at this stage is losing sight of those 2 guys in the water. You can only just see their heads there. This is the sort of situation you don't want to happen because the team is split up. You've got one guy over here, you've got 2 guys out there in the current sort of getting sucked out to sea with white water breaking over their heads. They are getting dragged out into that rip, as you can see there. They wouldn't be able to swim against it.
It was exhausting.
Yeah, if they've got one on board, now they've just got to get out and get those other 2 guys without swamping the speedboat. They're approaching them now. The boat will probably get blown around in the wind when they stop. And the worst thing that can happen, of course, is a wave start breaking into the back of the boat, which could potentially sink the boat, everyone and all the gear with it. See how it's that sloppy zone there where they are? That's where the current's at its strongest, where it's dragging against the wind and it's creating those white caps.
Wow, that was quite a down current down there.
With this deep diving, you know, they go so deep they've got to spend so much time in the water. You know, you don't know what the weather's going to do while they're down there in a 3-hour period, 4-hour period. And it's definitely a different situation than when they got in, I think. As soon as they get back, we'll pull the anchor up and get out of here. It's not looking good for the afternoon.
A few days later, on their final dive, the scientists at last discover a new species.
I got it! Right in here. Oh, she's a beaut. A new species. It got Chromis damsel. It looks like one we named the other.
Yeah, it looks like Chromis rhino, but it doesn't have a white spot, and it's got different color fin.
And there it is, gentlemen. That's the one I was so excited about.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful picture.
Oh my God, that's definitely a new species.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's got the blue over the eyes, which the other one doesn't have, and it's got the yellow pelvic fin.
The scientists have found only one new deep-water species. But ironically, they've made a much more important discovery. The lack of new species confirms their theory that diversity down deep is much the same here as it is in the Pacific. So why is it that the shallow reefs of the Coral Triangle have 5 times the diversity of the Pacific?
Now, if you can imagine, every 100,000 years, the sea level goes up and down by 100 meters or so. So if you can imagine dropping the sea level down to here, in the Pacific, you get these great pillars of limestone rock sticking up out of the water. What happens is these habitats all become extinguished. They disappear. And because of that, the fishes that live in those habitats also disappear. But if you look in the Coral Triangle, as the sea level drops, the habitats simply move down the slope, because every time the sea level is, you still have this shoreline habitat. So the habitats that were up here are now down here. So whereas you've eliminated the habitats in the Pacific Islands, you've maintained them here in the Coral Triangle. And because of that, over millions of years, these species persist. As the sea level goes up and down, these species and these habitats just move up and down this bathymetry. And from the Coral Triangle, eventually recolonize these habitats that were wiped out when the sea level was lower. So in that way, the Coral Triangle is sort of like the mother of all coral reefs in the Indo-Pacific region.
The deep divers' findings confirm that the Coral Triangle is a unique archive of marine species and seeds many of the world's tropical reefs.
This is Coral Triangle, and like the species, the coral species just like going like attenuate like outside the Coral Triangle. So it is the mother of corals. It is important, and that's why actually we work hard to save it, because it is the mother of the coral. Coral Triangle is a strong ecosystem because they have a lot of diversity. So the same as us, we have a lot of diversity. Ecologically, it gives us the economic, social, and cultural benefits. We have 120 million people depending on the marine resources. And these people cannot be cut off from the resources. But what we need is to have more people managing these resources and these people. so many different tribes living in the different islands with so many different languages. It's supposed to make us stronger because then we can help each other out.
The mother of all reefs is a great archive of marine life, a powerhouse of nature. And it's a precious global resource that must be kept alive and thriving. But it's also under threat from overfishing, pollution, and climate change. For this reason, the Six Nations, Indonesia, Malaysia, Papua New Guinea, the Philippines, the Solomon Islands, and Timor-Leste, united to create the Coral Triangle Initiative and save this great natural wonder for the future. Next episode, we discover Ocean Central, the tropical convergence of the Pacific and Indian Oceans, where we will meet the world's biggest marine creatures as they join the amazing mass of life feeding from the currents of the Coral Triangle.